Okay, so
I'm not. I'll say whatever.
yeah, you
Kidding.
can spew bullshit.
Yeah, so 100 Kingdoms is getting a monster.
Okay,
Confirmed.
Confirmed.
Yeah, it's gonna be that fish gnome.
Oh,
Yeah, Reese came to me in a dream and told me about it.
Yeah.
Oh, this is good. This would be
It's gonna
great.
be D6 blessed, no resolve, and it shoots 30 inches.
Damn.
Wait, VCI?
No, this is FCI. Fish gnome
yeah.
Central.
All right, welcome to BonkTable. I'm Mass. There's Mike, and we have Karl and Taylor from first and second place from Gencon. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
There, now we've just started.
So the like my recording is just it missed my hello, so it's gonna sound like. I mean, you just kind of blew past it anyway, so I'm not too worried. But just be aware.
Don't worry, I have this all in one track.
You're gonna be like, "Damn it, where's the hello?" Oh, well, I'm also making a recording of just my voice.
Perfect.
So if you need to do overdubs of me, only my lines.
I'll splice them in randomly of just you saying hello.
For the listener, when I say my lines, I mean literally everything I say, and just me, is meticulously scripted for both your and my safety.
Jesus. All right. Oh, God. We have not made like 2 seconds into this. All right. So, thank you, gentlemen, for coming on to our podcast to talk about Gen Con and how it was, what you played, your matches, and so on. We've also discussed before entering the podcast what our rule of the week is going to be. Do we have anything for PB news? Because I know there's I think by the time this is out, the deadline for getting a Tauntator and a Drum Beast is over. So that was the last thing I kind of know. Do you guys know anything?
End of an era. 4th week in a row of us talking about the same dinosaur deals as PB News finally coming to a close with the end of the Tauntaur and Drum Beast promotion. Rip to a legend.
I mean, I will say, I saw the actual model at Gen Con. It's pretty big.
So do you think it could have fit? Because Mike and I have had this discussion of, would it fit on 2 bases? Like if you had 2 monster bases? Or does it actually fit on 1 monster base?
I think that they didn't want to open up the can of worms that would be double monster bases. I'm a little curious how they're going to do it with double cav bases with the city-states chariots, and I think that's the main reason. It really wants to be on a double monster base.
It seems like it wants to, but yeah, I guess you could cram it onto a single monster base.
It definitely fits, and it is glorious and gorgeous, but I think it wants to be a double.
No, because I remember at one point there was talk about this being on a double monster base. So, okay, thank you. Now we know. There we go.
Here's the real question. Am I going to have to get a second little bag to carry my Tauntaur to the LGS?
So, there was a Giannis, community manager at Parabellum, was telling us a story at Gen Con about how he got stopped flying over from Greece because the container that they brought the Tauntaur in was so big that the TSA or their equivalent thought that it was a reptile. Like, they thought that he had a snake in there and was transporting it.
So, I've seen how many eggs you can fit in that thing. So, my thinking now is that if you put a baby snake in there with a hand warmer and then glue it up with super glue so that you can bust it up easy enough when you get across the border, you could very easily smuggle an exotic reptile, the snake, what have you,
in
across the border. Yeah, in the Tauntaur's belly, and then just break it open. Bang. You're making imported reptile money, and you're getting Now you got 10 Tauntaurs. Easy.
Oh yeah,
Oh my god.
I think that's a get rich quick scheme.
Yeah, I mean, that's illegal, so don't do it. But if you did it, you'd probably get rich.
Just imagine if you're buying and you got one guy that wants the Tauntaur and the other guy that wants the egg. 2 birds, 1 stone.
Exactly.
You just glue the Tauntaur back together after.
Thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
Holds its value.
You know what? That's what the QE manager was actually doing. Just delivering exotic baby snakes to Gencon to sell for more money.
Well, there's going to be snake weirdos at Gencon. That stands to reason. No offense to snake weirdos out there. Love y'all. But those people exist and they'll admit they're weirdos.
Oh, at least they're true to themselves and honest about it. Oh my god.
Yeah, I respect
thine own
the hell out
self
of
be
that.
true.
To thine own self be snakes.
Oh my god. Alright.
Podcast.
PB news complete. Next session. We're going on to the vote. So, the vote is, I'm just going to read it out and then we can all discuss this amazing rule. When a regiment with this special rule is the target of a Priest X spellcasting action, one failed spellcasting die is converted to a success. If the regiment has a character stand attached to it, with this special rule, then the regiment also counts as having devout for as long as the character stand remains attached to it. Period. Alright, who wants to go first on devout? Karl?
I mean,
Sure, I'll take a crack. Yeah, it's a handy rule. It's kind of one of those, oh, yeah, I guess he has this. I think it does its best on OD characters, the Hierodeacon and the Archimandrite, because it's just kind of like, oh, now you only need 1 success to get whatever spell you're trying to cast off, and that's handy because wizards that you don't have to upgrade give you more points for other stuff.
Alright. Taylor, what do you think about devout?
So, 100 Kingdoms doesn't really use a priest, so I don't really have too much of an opinion. I think it would be cool to have something that provides more interaction, right? Because a Thief's Priest, if you drop too much points into him, he can target devout units anywhere on the board, which I think is a cool little, like, hey, you're praying, I hear your prayers, here's some blessings, but it's just not, as far as like a competitive event, not worth it.
Yeah, I do know for, I think it was the Volva, or any, like, devout has a weird interaction where it doesn't say it's for, like, friendly devout units, it's just for enemy, or, like, every devout unit, so you could actually, like, use devout against your opponent if they have it, what I find really funny.
Well, that's actually why I wanted us to talk about it, because I think that's what makes it interesting. There's not like, it's just a neat texture to the rule. It doesn't actually, for the most part, people just get mad that it's there because now their unit is a little more vulnerable because of it, or they're not because it's on your Valkyries and they just heal better.
Or I'm chucking holy fires at people.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I'm going to chuck a holy fire at the, here's a holy fire. Oh, there's an extra success because you're praying.
Yeah, your god worships me now. Bam! I have built and played a devout list where it was running a Warlord Theist Priest and a secondary Theist Priest with, like, I believe it was like Glimmers of Faith. What's the 360 no-scope spinning heirloom?
Okay, wait a second.
Yeah, the Mastery, Glimmer of Faith.
I figured it out. Why this makes sense. So if you believe in the Dweg god, and I believe in the 100 Kingdoms god, and I yell, hey, God sucks at you, that hurts you more than, like, Aspire's atheist.
Is this...
If you were like, hey, God sucks, to him, he'd be like, okay.
It's like, oh, no, you didn't! That's what's gonna happen. You can get
that's why it makes sense that it hurts, why your religion attack would hurt a religious guy more than an atheist. He's just gonna be like, oh, okay, God's fire, whatever.
Now we're gonna get to the religious mumbo-jumbo. It's like, oh, this
let me science this away.
I'm glad that it specifies friendly though, because that would be so great if you could target like his his holy fire shooting attack at any devout unit on the board. So just nuking Valkyries from 60 inches away because they're on the board.
Oh, yeah, the Glimmer of Faith is friendlies. Yeah.
Yeah, thank goodness that was caught because that'd be fucking hilarious.
That'd be great. Getting that changed right now. Priest useful.
Priest use, yeah, but it's friendlies. So
it's like Mikama from Chainsaw Man. Just gonna go send him in the back corner. We're just gonna sacrifice some units and pray.
Do you think if I make a Mikama Theist priest model and all the militia were like guys tied and blindfolded, and I would sack the militia to like
I would buy that.
To like bomb people? It's like
take my money.
I don't necessarily know anything about Chainsaw Man, but is that little dog?
Yeah, it's a chainsaw dog. You should. I watched the entire series. I started at like 11 p.m. and woke up at 4, and I was like, "Oh, I'm done it. Nice."
Oh.
that was a day. By day, I mean an entire night of time spent well. Time
spent well.
Yeah. So, like, the thing about the devout, especially with the Theist priest, is that and this is the only time I think you want to do like a full devout list, and this is like kind of a meme because it's not that great, is you put devout on as much thing as possible. You declare the Theist priest's warlord abilities like for supremacy to do, what the hell is it? His cast. If you Divine cast on sanction. Me, it gives everyone spirit shrines or whatever.
Yeah.
So you give everyone like cleave and deadly blades, and then you give the second Theist priest, give everyone blessed. Except your 2 card activations down, so you lose tempo. And you're kind of hoping that now with these buffs of like Deadly Blades and Cleave 1 and Blessed, you can do enough damage with the rest of your stuff. Like, it's mostly on Men-at-Arms, what's kind of funny. Militia, because the priests are in them. And anyone who has the Mantle of St. Nicholas. So hopefully those units. So usually I have an Imperial Officer with a Mantle, and then he's in a unit of Steel Legion. So that unit of Steel Legion is like blessed with Cleave 3, so that'll do some work. But you're kind of hoping like that whole combo, after taking 2 turns of just being punched in the face, you can just do enough damage to win. Except people will see that coming very far away because you're down on tempo. And if they're afraid of losing something, they just back up out of range.
Yep.
Like, it's that easy to resolve and prevent that whole game plan with the devout list. So I kind of don't put a ton of points into this because I've done it, and then Mike was like, well, I've seen you do this before. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, hey, I know how to deal with this. And then Mike just didn't come forward. I'm like, God damn it. I just burnt it all.
That killed me, though, because I love to move forward.
Yeah, but I didn't have to vote.
Mantle of Santa Claus ass MF.
Also, you tabled me that game.
Well, but did I still lose?
Yeah, you did, because you did put your Velks on the zone. Mm-hmm. I think I don't even know what episode that is. I think that's like 7 or 8.
There you go.
I'm gonna go with 8.
Yeah. That is a MG moment.
All right.
Yeah. It's definitely weird though, like the devout's only on certain things too, because what is it? The 100 kingdoms are split 3 ways: the church, the orders, and like the
not church. Well, the
noble
church
lords. Yeah.
Well, there's the deists of the Theist priests. There's the orders. There's the imperial remnants, and then there's the nobility. So there's 5 ways.
Yeah, it's like you can make your Men-at-Arms devout, but Men-at-Arms kind of just are not good.
They are, as what has been explained, as objective chuds. They sit on the zone.
Yeah. They're good at that. They do it with Vanguard and cheaper than anyone else.
Yeah, and that's why they're the best.
Yeah.
Where you gonna find a better objective chud than 100k?
City States Chariots, 80.8-inch move scoring.
Is this a medium?
Yeah.
Is it? So it's 2 stands for the cart and the horse, and it's just 1 model? Or is it like 3 of them, so it's like 6? Like, what's the plan for this thing?
Oh, it's going to be a single, because currently in the list, it's a single for 80 points, and you can buy a second for, I think it might be 90 points and then 80 for a second, but it's sub 100 points, and everything we've heard, so this isn't like word of God or set in stone, but currently it is probably going to be a double cab stand with like the horse in the front and then chariot in the back. So it'll be a 2x1 for the single model, and it's just 8-inch move, and it scores because it's a medium.
My God, this is beautiful. I was hoping that'd be like 3 of them, like that'd be the regiment. It would just be like 6 stands.
Nah, the most you can run in it is 2 at the moment.
They said it couldn't be done. The sub 100-point objective, Chud.
God damn it. City State's taking everything good about 100 Kingdoms and making it better.
Yeah.
You could take our melee, but you can't take our crossbows.
You deserve to get knocked off your has a crappy little guy pedestal. Frankly, it's time for a new king to reign.
I have Spires players complaining to me about why 100k has cheaper stuff than Spires, and I'm like, have you looked at the Militia Bowman? Have you looked at her Scojo? It's 90 points, and I'm like, yeah, it's got 3 attacks.
To be fair, Force-grown drones and Spire stuff is engineered to be crappy, whereas with humans, they have they're made crappy by circumstance and oppression, and so it's the dignity is in the point costs.
And I actually think force-grown drones need a little bit of a buff. They're a little rough right now.
All right. Tell me why.
Honestly,
you have a whole audience. Preach.
Honestly, the only way that you really want to run them right now, because the Underspires isn't like competitively good, is just the huge, abnormally large block with a Biomancer with lethal demise as like a chug for the Biomancer. But the Biomancer is also not super good right now, and so it's just kind of like you don't really need to run them in a list.
You know what is really good right now? Ashen Dawn.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great segue, Tyler, for you to talk about your list. So, Tyler, you went to Gencon. What did you play? Tell us.
Played 100 Kingdoms with all of the Ashen Dawn my heart could desire. It was essentially, so it was a Priory Commander with the 2 Orders of the Crimson Tower and 2 Orders of the Ashen Dawn. Originally just kind of playing a whole bunch of games and getting things set up and figured out. I was just running them as the regular 3 stands, and after talking it through with Karl here, just playing it through and doing a whole lot of just math, we came to the conclusion that it's just better to run them 5 wide, because it takes it, to a 30 wound, D4 blessed, 30-something attacks, cleave 1, sometimes cleave 2, monstrosity.
Yeah,
that just does it all. Yeah, like, right, blessed, cleave 1, impact, fearless, wedge, unstoppable, all that good stuff.
You have no standards on here on the Gen Con from the Parabellum, or did they just not add it in?
They probably didn't add them in. I should have had...
Yeah, he did have banners in the list.
Everything.
I think they were drawing up the lists at the very end so that they could post them on the website, so it's not 100% accurate. Because he definitely had banners.
No problem. Yeah. Like I'm not like, oh, you guys didn't do it right. No, it's more like I'm looking at the website here because I'm gonna put the link to the Gen Con 2023 tournament report in the show notes below for the listeners to like read it and have it available to them. But I'm like, where the fuck are the banners? Like, why wouldn't you put banners on a 5-man unit of Ashen Dawn? Just asking to just like clap some people.
Yeah, no.
Here, I just messaged you his actual list.
Look at those standard bearers. They're so it's glorious. Don't tempt me with a good time.
Right, and then I think it was.
You only have 4 Steel Legion, not 5.
Yeah, it got changed a little bit.
Well, good thing we're talking about the list.
Yeah.
Good catch.
Yeah, no, the orders definitely just carry everything, and so my general game plan was the Order of the Ashen Dawn has to be double teamed. Like if the player, your opponent, knows the game mechanics, understands Blessed, he's going to screen it to shoot it if he's playing anything with volley, or he has to put a couple units that offer multiple attacks, right? Because you can only bless once.
Yep.
Otherwise, it just... What was it, Carl? I think you hit me 40 times in the back with hoplites, and I think I took 2 wounds.
Yeah, I mean, those were just some bad dice, because I did have impact hits and a clash, but yeah, it was... I guess the thing about Blessed is, if one of your sets of dice rolls is even just slightly above average, you just take no damage, like, at all.
Yep.
No, Bless is a fantastic rule, and I'm really happy, like... Mike and I have talked about in our army building episode, it's episode 7 of the podcast, where we just kind of went over all of it, and like you have to saturate melee threats, you have to like throw range at it, throw guns at it, and you have to put minimum 2 to 3 regiments into that blessed regiment to kill it, and you have to kind of bait it out on bad choices of blessed.
Yep. So right, understanding that, I usually play to where I'm creeping the order up. The best case scenario for me playing the Ashen Dawn is to get at least 2 heavy reinforcement rolls in addition to a free, so I could choose to bring in an Order and Crimson Tower, or 2 of the Ashen Dawn and Crimson Tower.
Mm-hmm.
You flank the Crimson Tower and the Ashen Dawn, like you run them side by side. If the Ashen Dawn gets charged before they can pop Wedge off, then you have a Crimson Tower into the flank. If they don't respond and you get close enough, then it's a charge clash with the Ashen Dawn, which will pretty much wipe anything in the game at the moment.
Yeah, that Wedge, I found it really funny when they added Wedge to Ashen Dawn. It's like, why? Why do they need to be cleaved to on the charge? Like this is your like anvil that just claps people. You don't need this.
Yeah, the D4 versus D3 shield buff was all, like, just that already put them at just a little bit too good for their points, and then they give him Wedge, and it's like, okay, so now you have to charge them, or they just kill whatever they hit, and a good 100k player who knows that is just going to have Crimson waiting to just pick off whatever hits them. Because you're never going to wipe all the Ashen Dawn in one turn.
No.
It's just not going to happen.
You can do 18 moves to them and they'll just now break.
Still around.
That's after they burned a Blessed and got the D5 resolve, so 18 wounds takes a little bit of dice throwing to get there.
So, Ashen Dawn, best unit in the game?
Probably at the moment.
Carl?
It definitely has its pros and cons, but yeah, like point-wise, Ashen Dawn.
I think if someone had built 4 boxes of Steel Forged and brought 2 units of 5 Steel Forged, we might be having a slightly different conversation, but that's because the Steel Forged would be locking in with Ashen Dawn while the Sorcerer casts on them. If we're just looking at point for point the best unit in the game, it's easily Ashen Dawn.
Yeah.
So in the paper space, 1-on-1, Ashen Dawn. In an actual army, in a game, and the stuff, of course that's going to change because that's how the game's played. Probably putting your points towards Steel. Yeah, because I could just not imagine, like, 2 blocks of 5 of Steel Forge, like, someone replicating this list in Dwag, because what was really funny, what I found was, when I showed off that Goblin list from Hannah from Germany, Dwag players were, like, looking at it and were like, this is amazing, and they were starting to make their own versions of the Goblin list in Dwag, and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, which, no one does it like 100k. I think it's one of those... It's a weird one because, so I've tested into the 2-5 Steelforged list just because I play a lot of games, and at least, this is going with my specific list that I brought, but my list does very well into 2-5 Steelforged. It does not do well at all into 2-5 Ashen Dawn.
Okay, so we're going to move on to your list shortly, but Tyler, do you want to just finish up with the Imperial Officer part of your list, and then we'll talk about Carl's list?
Sounds like a no.
No, I guess not. Did I cut out or
I
something?
muted myself. I'm sorry. No, I had to talk to the wife and forgot to unmute. So yeah, no, the Imperial officer side of things, he's there to try and get that early game presence, right? Gives everything Vanguard, a couple shooting units that are more so just to harass and bait. Like you want them to almost charge the mercenary crossbowmen because that means they're coming closer to your horse. Men at arms there just to hold an objective, and then the Steel Legion are there just in case I need to reinforce the horse line at some point. I will say too, right? I'm running 5 heavies. My second match at Gencon was against a Spires player who should have won. I missed every single reinforcement roll. He was running a 5 block of marksmans and a 6 block of VCI, and he pretty much like 12 inches away from my board edge. So I just ended up sacrificing both Ash and Dawn units on turns 3 and 4, and then turns 5 was just charge clashing with Crimson Tower, which is very good because the Ash and Dawn didn't die even into the block of Avatara and getting shot with the VCI and getting shot with the marksman clones. Little oppressive, but should have definitely lost. I did lose. I think that match I lost 8 models of Ash and Dawn. Yeah.
My
I know
God.
I know it's not the full 10, but yeah, it was
the closest.
It came down to 6 points, and it was because he pulled his units off of the objectives to come get me, and because he came closer to me, I made charges that I probably shouldn't have made with Crimson Tower. Like, right, he moved closer to try to like volley into me, and then my 6-inch charge turned into like a 3 with a reroll, which you make all day. You hopefully make all day.
No, I did.
Carl will tell you about that.
My last battle report, I did not make all day because I was like, I need a 2, 1, reroll 1. I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah.
That was pretty much it.
Wow, I love the list. I've done.
I hate it.
I know you hate it because it has Ash and Dawn in it. I would love.
I probably would go back to Gilded Legion, honestly, over the Steel Legion.
Just have another anvil.
I switch it back around. My original list was running a Gilded Legion block with the Imperial Officer running flank and Armor of Dominion, just to get a for sure 2 heavies. So if I do miss a reroll, I have an Ash and Dawn and a Gilded Legion coming on, and then right, if I miss all of my rerolls, I deploy a little differently. You put the Gilded Legion up front and the Ash and Dawn right behind them, just because if they charge the Gilded Legion, it's great for you because pike formation, and then you just gotta shoot them in the sides. And if they don't charge, then usually you can march charge with the Ash and Dawn.
Yeah, just get in there.
But it's really, it's really just to get 2 for sure heavies and not lose because you didn't roll good.
Yeah, no, I do love like the TAC 3 Imperial Officer for that flank. It just makes your turn 3 so much smoother.
Yep, I agree.
All right. Well, thank you for the list. Karl?
Yeah?
You're playing City States. Tell me about your list. Or tell Mike and I about your list.
I mean, it's pretty much just bread and butter, double hoplite block, and then you toss in the, one of them's, it's double polymark. I unfortunately don't have much reason to run Aristarch competitively right now. That'll hopefully change with some new units. But then it's just one big hot block. Both of them have Dorolates and Haspist auxiliary.
Sorry. And then, you have to say Doritoes.
Doritoes.
Yeah, sorry. We Mike and I figured that one out when we had to go over the City States.
No, I'm pretty sure it's Dorolates.
Jesus Christ.
Or
get some real English names like Imperial Officer.
Yeah.
Dorolades.
I can't do Greek.
Dorolades.
Sorry, Karl. Karl, please continue.
Yeah, no worries. And then it's just that plus 2 Haspists to fill out the mainstays, 2 Thyrians, and a Hephaestion.
Yeah. So what was your game plan with this? Because you got an 8 block of Hoplites with like an Architect 3 Polemark Warlord who has a spear and lighter allies. I know lighter allies you can swap for. You can take off basically all your defense for speed.
Yep.
And you can actually like do a D6 charge instead of the +3.
Yeah, it's D6 charge at move 8, so you're looking at, well, reasonably, you hope you can get about 11 to 12 inches out of it, 14 max. That wasn't the case in one of my games, but
Yeah.
in general, I find it's more of a nuclear deterrent. It's not something you exactly want to use all the time because a skilled opponent knows what it does and they know how to counter it. It's just the fact that they need to counter it is why you bring it, basically. It's 35 points to stop you from being bullied, and if you're playing into someone who doesn't, who misplays into it, then yeah, it's very easy to capitalize on that.
Yeah, because you just bolt across, and then you have your massive block of Hoplites, the Polemark, and your auxiliary Minotaur Aspis should beat on something and set that line. And then if they don't have anything to counter, you're all armored up for next turn. What's great.
Yep, absolutely. The problem that it runs into is city-states are almost... a lot of the... Like, this one is a 2/7, 2 characters, 7 active... or 7 regiments.
Mm-hmm.
The most city-states are really going to be is 2/8. I'm sure some people will disagree, but there's not really great 3-character competitive lists with them just because of the how their points end up working. So because of that, you're always almost going to be out-activated. So even when you use the strat stack to pick an extra activation, you're still going to be sitting there with D1 Hoplites while your opponent has 1 to 2 more activations.
So do you try and use the lighter alloys at the end of your turn so that you can kind of beta as much as you can?
Yep, it always has to be at the end if you're going to do it. Usually I'll have Hoplites in the strat stack almost no matter what, and then if I'm planning on actually using it, I'll put a Polemark on the very bottom so that my second to last activation is the Polemark, and then use the strat stack to pop them out immediately, right after their defenses go down.
Okay, nice. Then you have a block Minotaur Hespis. You have 2 Minotaur Hespis with the Shield Minotaurs, and 2 units of Minotaur Theons. These are all MSUs. So you got the Cleave 3 Linebreaker guys. How did you find the Cleave 3 Linebreakers? Were they ever like sniped out easier because they're only defense 2? Because I like as a 100 Kings player, I find that they get I just shoot them and they die.
No, not particularly, because I always screen them with Haspists. I mean, Tyler can pretty much attest to that one. We play a lot. He does not usually get shots off on the Thyrians ever. It's always the Haspists are in front of them and the Thyrians are behind. So it's like, yeah, you can charge the Haspists with the Crimson Tower if you want, but they're immediately going to take Thyrians.
And yeah, the Thyrians are just going to eat them.
Yeah, it's very much a chess game, right? Like, if I want to take that space, how many times is he going to take it back? Oh, he's got 4 units there. I only got 3. Well, then he comes out on top, right? Because I'll charge in, kill a unit. He charges in, kill a unit. I charge in, kill a unit. He charges in, kill a unit. And he usually sets up in a way to where I don't win in the charges, because Karl's good like that.
You're good like that, Karl. Nice job,
Thank
man.
you.
Now, my last question about your list, maybe I'll have some more, but the last one on the top of my head is, you grabbed what the heck is this? Hephaestion. As you can tell, I'm not Greek.
Yep.
Oh, this is the Trident Strike guy. Why did you pick the Trident Strike giant instead of the support giant?
Ooh. I really don't like the Promethean right now. The problem is, the nature of him as a buff piece means that he wants to be activating before the units around him, but if he goes first, he usually ends up either getting in the way, or he ends up just being caught out by something else, because both the giants want to be low activation priority, and they both end up, the Promethean at least, because of his buffs, kind of has to be a higher priority activation, so he just doesn't turn out too well. Hephaestion, after he went up to Attunement 4 on both of his spells, he's fantastic. He is much better than Promethean at the moment. Cleave 3, Terrifying 2, he puts in the work. Also, in specific matchups like the Dwag match, I just have him right in between the two Hoplite blocks, throwing out that very helpful interference.
Oh, because he's a priest. Yeah, actually, that's
Yes,
great.
he is.
Because if the double cast like Tempered Sorcerer is going to like blow, pardon my language, blow his load on you, at least he's -1 to his attunement.
Yep. And when you combine that with Tenacious on the Warlord block, which I usually have out in front, plus the native D4, they can actually weather that Tempered Sorcerer pretty well.
I've noticed as more, I want to say like either high end or public city states players come out with their stuff, because there's always that chat. I read a lot because it's just I have time to read. It's like, where are city states at? Oh, how are they doing? Blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, how I feel about city states and how I see it publicly from like high skill set players. What you guys, I would say you are, both of you. There's a bit of a disconnect, but as you explain this list more to myself, like to me and Mike, it kind of starts making sense. So on turn 4, you have all your stuff out on the table, but let's say on turn 4 you have all your stuff out, like you made all your reinforcement rolls. What's your kind of game plan? Like, is both the Hoplite blocks kind of marching up to start engaging? The Hespians are defending the Thyrians, and the Killing Giant, because I'm not Hepestian, the Trident Giant, he's just running around like tridenting people to death.
Pretty much. I don't like exposing him that much, so usually, it's basically you're going to have the weaker Hoplite unit, or the smaller one without the Warlord, hard on a flank, and then the Warlord block is going to be on that same flank, but more centralized, so that they're taking most of the punishment. You'll have the Hephaestians supporting them. Depending on the matchup, they'll also have a Thyrian with them, and then their job is to hold one half of the board very strongly and basically force your opponent to play into that. And then you throw the 2 Haspists and the Thyrians as like the beefcake block, and you just zoom that up the other side of the board and force your opponent to deal with that.
Okay, so you set that line of engagement with the larger block, and then you kind of move everything to basically squish your opponent between it. Like
yep, absolutely.
Okay. No, like I'm happy to have this, because I was like, okay, what is going on with city states? Because a lot of the games I've had into city states, it seems like the strategic stack has actually been not helpful for city states as like turn 4 to 6 happen. Like those are the kind of the big game turns I've been finding with Conquest. Like that's
so that's where they're using the strategic stack incorrectly if they don't think it's useful throughout the game, because it, no matter what, always gives you at least one extra activation that you can hold until the very end. And so, yeah, you're not going to be putting something into the strat stack very early in the turn, but what you're going to do is, in the middle of the game, you'll do your, say, 3 to 4 high priority activations, then throw something into the strat stack, then do everything else, and hold that one piece until the very end, where hopefully your opponent has then gassed out all their stuff, and then you get to come in with it at the end.
okay,
Which,
so that's what you've been finding has been very successful with city states.
yes. Okay. And that's, I mean, I played Ben at Adepticon, and he's fantastic. I've actually been playing him a few times on TTS since then, and that's where I've hashed out a lot of my city-state strategies, just because he's very good. And that's basically where the base of this list came from. If you look at it compared to his Acon list, basically upgrade or cuts down on one of the Hoplite blocks to upgrade the 3rd Thyrians up to the Hephaestian.
Okay, yeah, because if I recall from the Adepticon list, the only major change for unit choices is that, I think one of the Hoplites are gone for a giant. Like it's still using that core of like Hoplites and Minotaurs to win games.
Yes. Yep, that's absolutely where it is. Thorikites aren't in a super great spot right now. I think Agama are very good. This just came down to a points, because if you're putting points into Agama, they need to be either 4+ Apollomark or 5 stands with the Zepharkos. Well, okay, with or without Zepharkos, but either way, they need to be 5 stands to get the most out of the fluid.
My next question for you is, you have no lights. How does that affect your game?
It really depends on the matchup. A lot of times I don't find it affects it that much, because I'm still moving stuff onto the board. it can be very hard against Nords in heavy scoring scenarios where it's like I just have to throw everything up and just hope my stuff's better at killing than his, because otherwise I'm going to get outscored on turn 5. But other than that, it doesn't really affect things much. It's actually kind of nice because then I know exactly where all their stuff is. So part of what I said is I'm screening the Thyrians with Haspists, but also I'm going to throw the Hoplites in front of shooting units because they're really good at dealing with it, and I'll send the Minotaurs somewhere else.
Oh, yeah, no, it's perfect. Mike, do you have any questions for these gentlemen?
No, not specifically. I mean, things have been pretty comprehensively covered. I feel like I just looking at the city-states list, I feel like exemplifies something that I think is a Woodrune. Because that's all my only frame of reference for anything is through the Woodrune, but the meatball style of play, which is having one guy who takes the hit and then 4 guys who throw the hit. But, you know, knowing how to make a meatball is important in this game. That's all. That's my general commentary. Overall, I'm like, just not question-wise, but just observation-wise, I think right now with the scenario pack and the movement abilities that a lot of factions have, especially in their mediums and stuff, like we just live in an age of diminished importance of lights for the most part, except for Nords where it's kind of their deal. Like, I mean, lights serve a purpose, but like you don't necessarily have to have that board presence that was almost necessary in 1.5, I feel like.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. You're not bringing lights because you need the light presence. You're bringing lights because they're very good units that also happen to be lights. That's like your slingers, your VCI, honestly, your hunting packs with Radrune. We're seeing kind of a reoccurring pattern here, but you're not bringing lights for the sake of bringing lights.
Yeah, like in 1.5, it was all about, for me at least, playing Nords and Woodrune, getting as much stuff out before the other guys as possible and sort of trying to dictate the engagements that way. But now it's more like, even when I do run lights, I want to, like, I'm putting all my characters at the top of the deck on the early turns, and even later than I would have previously in the game, and trying to just like be cagey and see what they're doing and get them to commit before I do anything at all. So I could definitely see not running lights at all. It doesn't seem like it. People still act like that's going to cripple you somehow, but it's like most people can get a medium onto a point or most factions can get a medium onto a point in turn 2 because they all have fucking Vanguard or double time or I don't know.
The scenario's close enough.
Teleport, yeah.
Like, I think there's like the 6-inch zones that are a foot up the table. Well, it's actually like 3-inch back from the center, so you only have to move like actually 9 inches to get there. And you're March 5 base, so you're always going to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I know for myself, I like to have a little bit of lights in there, but that's because Merc crossbows are in there, and I'm like, I want Merc crossbow mainstays. I want their guns just to be annoying.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tyler, tell me what you played, or who'd you play into game 1 and how'd it go? And then Karl, we're going to do the same to you, so like.
Yeah, my game 1 was Karl.
You guys played game 1?
Yeah, I mean, there were only 8 of us, and 5 of us were from the same area, because Michigan is, for some reason, a very heavy Conquest area, and we're pretty interconnected across the stores. So we had 3 guys from my LGS, and then 2 guys across the state, who we still play every few weeks at a tournament, and that was 5 out of the 8 players there. I mean, it was a small pool.
Yeah.
I love this. I had this happen in War Machine when I went to North Dakota, and it was like, oh god, we have more people from Manitoba than there are North Dakotans. Oh god.
Because Karl and we had kind of been talking about it too, right? Because we got 4 solid games in with my final list versus his final list. And we essentially were like 50-50. You could probably say 60-40, like with me slightly ahead. And it came down to like just the gameplay mechanics of Karl can't make a mistake because the 5 wide Ashen Dawn punish it, I can make a mistake because the 5 wide Ashen Dawn don't get punished.
So I have a question about your table setup okay, first question. What scenario did you guys play?
So we played. Yeah, so in our testing, what it came down to, because again, we play each other a lot now.
It's like these guys are friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Weird.
So Forlorn Hope is about the worst scenario for me in that matchup because
I'm so happy.
Yeah, exactly. Either other scenario, I had a fair shot, but when we got there, like on the table, that scenario, I was like, yeah, I probably don't have this. Because from my perspective, so no reinforcements past 12 inches, so I can't launch Thyrians forward or Haspists forward and then flank Thyrians in right behind them.
Because you would Vanguard out. Yeah, no, that's really smart. I like that.
The big one is the objectives close to the table edge. So what that means in our matchup is he can just sit his men-at-arms and his crossbowmen on those back objectives. I can't get close to them because I have to be aware of the fact that Cav are coming next turn. And he just sits there the entire game and doesn't get punished. When we play on a scenario like Maelstrom or something like that, I do much better because I just move up on the objective, sit there, use Unyielding, and just outscore him. But in a scenario with kill points and back objectives, there's not really much. It's like the scenario itself kind of smooths out the only weaknesses in the Ashen Dawn list.
So Tyler, you had a perfect storm?
Yeah, because I switched my list up to make sure I had at least light scoring and medium scoring, right? Through the Imperial Officer with the crossbows, had the men-at-arms. So I'm good turn 1, turn 2. 4 scenarios like Forlorn Hope and a couple of the other ones. That's exactly why I threw them in there. In a list like Karl's, he doesn't exactly want to, sit a 500, 600, 700 point block of hops and not move them forward.
No, he's got to get work done.
Yeah, so then he's sitting, Hasp or Thyran, so his units are a lot more value per the unit, and it's a lot worse for them to sit there. Whereas I'm happy sitting, the 105 point men-at-arms and the 150 point crossbow unit. Like they're fine sitting a bit in the back all day. And essentially my game plan was to make sure I captured my objective close to me, got on the 2 back objectives so that we're perfectly even, right? We're getting the same amount of points. We're doing everything fine. I play slow turns 3, 4, and 5 to bring in my entire army. I don't want to attack until my entire army is on the board because I want to be able to spread out. And essentially I put an Ashen Dawn on the left, Ashen Dawn on the right. I was going to put a Crimson Tower on each flank, but I ended up needing to put the Crimson Tower on the same side where he stacked up all of his Haspis and a Thyran. Like I had to put an extra unit on that side just to keep him honest. So I put Steel Legion on the far left to kind of hold that flank. And we just sit there and we get rid of all of our activations to where it's, we're just delaying. Because he knows my last 4 cards are going to be all for my cavalry, right? I don't want to move my cavalry up immediately just to watch them die to his army. So we play like that, and then depending on where his units are, I'm moving my cavalry 1 inch up, 1 inch up, 1 inch up. Because if he lets my cavalry get close enough to where I can charge Clash, I get much better. So at some point he has to charge me, and to his credit, he had a great setup, hit me in the flank, had the Heffy coming, and just ended up failing the Hoplite charge 3 times or 2 times.
It was 2 times. So the first time it was a 4 inch, and the second time it was a 3 inch.
Ooh,
that was with Unstoppable on a reroll.
Yeah, so that made it very difficult for him. It could have played out very differently because we had I had Crimson Tower set up. If he gets the charge, I'm gonna try to charge into the flank, and then he had Thyrans to kill the Crimson Tower that were going to kill the Hoplites, and then I had a second Crimson Tower to kill the Thyrans. Like, we had all these intricate layers. So, like, we're sitting here, like, having this Cold War, and then it turns into, like, he just whiffed a roll, and I was like, oh, okay, well, the Ashen Dawn are going to reform. Here's 32 attacks, cleave 1 into a Heffy. Oh, Heffy took 20 wounds and died. Okay, well, here's the game. Like, it's not to be like dramatic, but like when a 5 block gets to hit a unit and still gets a save blessed because he missed his reroll or his charge roll, they weren't really worried about anything.
No, yeah, like that's the perfect thing for Ashen Dawn with Bless is that each turn one new thing comes into them, and you just have Bless to just wash it off, and then you just hit them back and kill them, and you wait for the next one. Like, just you can't. Yeah, like that sucks, Karl. The charge rules, but sometimes that's the game. And
yeah, no, it's a dice game. It happens, and I mean, like I said, I think it was pretty clear from like turn 4 that I was disadvantaged in the matchup. I felt pretty good about holding him to only a 10-point lead on a scenario where you can score as like in the hundreds. I think I've gotten like 120 or close to 120 points on Forlorn with Spires before.
Dang.
So
Jesus.
I played it about as well as I could have. Yeah, like Tyler was saying, the one setup I had where my Heffy charge clashed and did 5 wounds to 80, and then I had my Hoplite set up to charge, get impacts, and then clash, and then they just whiffed their charge roll twice in a row, so then he just mopped up Heffy, and then it was just kind of done from there.
Did you concede the game, or did you guys still play it out and just watch it happen?
I don't concede games.
Oh, okay, sweet.
Yeah, we still played it out, but it was kind of one of those like, yep, he's got the win. That's fine. We're just going to keep playing this out.
So the only time I concede games, like I didn't do it in War Machine, but I did it in Conquest, is mostly when it's like, all right, I got 1 regiment left, and you have the world, and I'm so far down points, like we don't need to do the next turn. Thank you. That's usually when I bow out. But
yeah,
I'm always glad to hear people who are like, yeah, this is probably not going to go my way, but I'll play it out anyway, because you don't know what's actually going to happen until it happens, and I'm always glad to hear that from other players.
I'll play it out for a 1 in a million, but like if it's statistically impossible for me to win after a certain point, then like that's fine. We don't need to do this.
Yeah, and I mean that's something like maybe local, but yeah, even at a tournament that ended up being as small as Gencon, like I'm just not going to do that somewhere like that. Like I feel like conceding at Adepticon is also something that you just kind of like don't do. And so yeah, we finished playing, had a good time, and then I got to scrape my way up through the lower brackets.
You got to go to the fun brackets.
Yeah.
The fun zone. Okay. Well,
so was every first round the same scenario, or was it random from table to table?
Nope, every same scenario was Forlorn.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
How was the terrain on the tables, guys? Like, was it spread out? Was there a bunch of it? Was it close together? Like, I know in the scenario documents it says like 8, but sometimes because also the scenario document says you can't put zone into terrain, terrain into zones. What I always find weird, like it, and then it also has to be 9 inches apart. Like, there's spots where you just end up with like 6 pieces because you can't put it anywhere else.
No, I mean, it ends up being pretty centralized there, but again, we have Rollo running it and Karthus, but because Rollo did Adepticon as well, and he does great job. I mean, running tournaments in general, shout out to him, he's a riot, but it's been always pretty consistent and pretty good with him. The terrain is impactful, but also it's not gonna completely screw with someone.
Okay, because I've played before the hindering terrain change at a table that had a ton of it on, and I was like, yes, I love playing this with my horses. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Ash and Dawn don't even care about that.
They'll sit in it all day.
Oh, they'll charge through it and still kill whatever they're hitting.
Damn.
Like our impacts.
Yeah, they losing impacts doesn't matter to them. I mean, if hindering took away wedge, that'd be something. But it's like, yeah, you're still taking 20 cleave 2 hits, and nothing wants to take that.
No.
Nope.
Tyler, my big question is: you ran both units of Ashendon 5 wide. Did you have any trouble getting around obstructions or anything you couldn't like move through, or did you just like had the edge? Did you have an edge for one stand to see past like a forest or something? You just charge right through it. Like, how was that?
No. Like Karl said, they kind of just go through the terrain. They don't really need the inspire or the impacts. So like on my game with Karl, there was a forest that the right side was kind of just hanging out of, and then the left side they were sitting in water for a turn or two just because there was really no other way to go. But they just don't really care because it's not like he's gonna push up a unit to come fight them, because even if they lose the clash or they don't get the impacts, like they're still throwing 31 dice.
You just way to dice it through. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
And then the terrain, Rolo had it set up to where you could at least get like a 3 wide on the flanks, but there was definitely impassables. So I kind of was forced to play the Ashendon to the center of the map, but they want to be in the center anyway.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really.
That's where all the scoring is.
Yeah. So like it wasn't really too detrimental. There was a point where my third game, it kind of forced them more on the left side just with how the terrain was, and then like some light positioning and scoring. But again, it kind of just worked out because on that match, the my opponent was an OD player, and he was Spires. My third match was Spires again as well. He threw a bunch of units at me and like came to like fight me. So instead of me needing to charge around like a church, he charged into me. So I was like, okay, cool. Inspire clash. Oh, there's 27 hits at Cleave 1. Yeah, like when you start adding those extra stands, the Ashendon get a little obnoxious.
Well, all right. Damn. So you took home the win for round 1, Tyler. Tell me about round 2.
Yeah, my round 2, I should have lost. We ended up playing what scenario I haven't pulled up here. We played melee round 2, and on the scenario, my opponent ended up winning the board edge. So he chose the edge that had fields and hills. My board edge ended up having a couple forests and an impassable piece of like a building or whatever. So it kind of like forced me to play center left. And then he was running a lot of early units, VCI, and then just like some of the Vanguard clones were mediums and like marksmen. So he was pushing up the board very quickly. So I threw my lights on there, threw my men at arms on there. They each got a score turn 1 and turn 2 before they got killed pretty much. He killed all but one stand of my crossbows with his VCI, and then he ended up running Avatar blocker or something just up to contest one of the objectives, because it was like Vanguard, March, so he pushed up, just enough, the 19 inches.
Just get in
and
there.
Then, yes, and then turn 3 and turn 4, all of my reinforcement rolls were like 3, 4, 5, 6. And then when I rolled for reinforcement rolls on turn 4, I rolled 3 6s and a 5, and I was like, huh. So I kind of was like on my board edge shooting with the crossbows, and like the men at arms, I threw them into an Avatar block just to stop them from pushing up, so I could have like a spot to bring in a unit, because he had the center blocked down by VCI, and he had the right side blocked down by like a 6 block of Avatar with the Lineage Highborn, whoever the warlord is.
Yeah, that'd be a lineage.
Yep. So the Ashendon I brought in on turn 3, I was actually happy he did this, and I think this is just the reps versus not reps, and like part of the skill gap. Instead of shooting the Ashen Dawn first, he charged into me with his Avatara, essentially blocking off his VCI from shooting my Ashen Dawn.
Yep.
Because it saved me probably a couple stands. And then he charged into me. The Ashen Dawn are going to win a fist fight all day. So I was like, okay, at least, this unit's good. It might take him a couple turns to kill just because he had 6 stands. But, like, I know that unit will be fine in, like, 2 or 3 rounds. 4th round, just with how he had his VCI, he was on my side table objective. He was the exact 14 inches away from my board edge. So I just threw an Ashen Dawn unit directly up into the VCI's face and pretty much was like, you're going to get 30 shots, you better kill him. He killed 3 stands, which was just enough for them to not be able to charge. So I had to Inspire Charge. It was in a forest, so they didn't get any impacts, but they were locked down. And because he was running them 6 wide, he was hanging out of the forest edge. So that let my turn 5, when everything came on, and they were able to charge the next turn, I was able to charge Clash with the Crimson Tower block and start just clearing units out. And he had kept, throughout his entire deployments, just pushing everything towards the Ashen Dawn to kill them. So his back objective near him, and then the big objective on, like, my right side, he just ignored. So he only captured 2 objectives the entire time, and I think he got 3 objectives once, where he probably should have had 3 to 4 objectives the entire middle of the game if he just would have left his units there instead of chasing my board edge.
So he got kill hungry, like, and instead of looking at the bigger picture, what's to win the game is to score the points. He just wanted to kill Ashen Dawn, kill your list, get rid of, like, kill it all. Because if there's no one left around, you still got a couple turns left. You can just go back on those objectives and score more points. And also, if he's scoring points on 2 objectives and keeping you off all of them, he can still win until turn 10. But you kind of have the survivability and tankiness to kind of take it to 10 turns while he did not, it seemed. And you took advantage of that.
Yeah, so it kind of worked out. I was able to keep my Imperial Warlord alive until, like, turn 6, and he actually chased it down to get the 4 kill points. But in him doing so, he lost a unit of marksman clones with their character and an objective to a Crimson Tower charge. Like, right, he moved up the 5 inches to shoot the crossbow unit with the Lord, and then I just march charged into him with a Crimson Tower with a Priory Commander, and I did, I think, 15, Brutal 2, Terrifying 2. Like, I pretty much broke the unit and then killed them the next turn. And I had did that with all of his units, because he had just kept throwing things at the Ashen Dawn. And because he threw so much at the Ashen Dawn and wasn't able to kill them completely, he never got any kill points for Ashen Dawn either. And I ended up tabling him turn 7 after getting everything killed. Yeah, like, I had both my Crimson Tower units turns 5, 6, and 7 charge Clash each round. Like, he left them unchecked.
You're living the dream.
It was against Spires, right? They don't have much defense.
No,
so
they die.
And it was Crimson Tower, so I was like, yeah, here's 8 Brutal 2 and then 15 Cleave 1. Here's 12 Brutal 2 and then 20 Cleave 2, or just Cleaves. So I ended up getting all of the objectives, and then to, like, not again, the guy was
rub the salt.
He pulled his last 2 units off of his objectives to charge into my Ashen Dawn, which just killed both of them on the clapback. Like, he sent them into him, and I just split the attacks, and I ended up killing his unit of clones and then, like, killing an Avatar unit because they were, like, almost dead anyway. And instead of him getting those, like, extra 4 points, he gave me another 4 in kill points. So, like, by the time we totaled it all down, I only had scored 28 or 30 from objectives, and I had like 26 kill points from his army, whereas he only got 6 kill points from my army, and should have had just way more for objectives.
Yeah, there's. I feel in this game, especially like with melee, it kind of because it has that line of like where the like right on that 24-inch line. Well, not on the 24-inch line, but if you go a little further and back for the 2 6s, if you can secure all 4 of those objectives and you don't have to move off of them for any reason, don't. Like your opponent went kill hungry, and you took advantage of that because you could claw back. Because if you had to fight him just on the edge of those objectives, and he could just kind of feed guys and still score, that's like a different game. So.
Well, like I was even kind of like, because I am very. I don't mind losing. I hate losing to dice, and I'm working on that as just some character development. But like when I rolled those 3 6s and a 5 on my reinforcement rolls, I was pretty vocally pissed about it. And like he rolled and like was bringing everything on, and like we were still like talking to him and stuff and whatnot. And I was like, all right, I'm moving I'm double marching backwards with all my units. The intent's, to make sure that you have to march if you're gonna like attack my guys. And like he flipped over his VCI, and he was like, man, I really don't know what to do with these guys because you double march back. And I'm like, I literally said to him, I'm like, probably just double march to the side. And he's like, well, if I double march to the side, I can't shoot you. And I'm like, yeah, but I asked him because I don't play Spires. I was like, VCI are light units, right? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, so you have your light units on the objective, but your character's not on the objective, so that's not scoring. I'm like, you understand that, right? And he's like, oh, I'm not worried about that. And I kind of just like looked at him, and Rolo at this point was like watching our game intently. Rolo kind of just left and came back turn 8 and was like, thought you'd be losing at this point. Yeah, it was.
This guy,
the guy was new. It was definitely a newer player who had me dead to rights and just didn't capitalize the objectives.
Yeah, there's little things like that. Like put your characters on zones, set the line of engagement, have the tempo, like the initiative / tempo in your favor, where you're dictating where your opponent has to go and what your opponent has to deal with. Like I seen this game and how you described it, where you took advantage of like the areas your opponent made mistakes by taking his regiments off those objectives, and you bring him closer to your board edge so you could just go right after that first turn when stuff comes on, that you can immediately get into like charge clashes and kill things very effectively. Like well done on just playing that game. I've already said it. Seeing your opponent's mistakes, capitalizing on them, and doing things that you can do to try and regain an advantage because you were playing from behind, and you did really well on that, and that's good.
Yeah, that's why you don't concede. And that's why you definitely don't concede in your head. Because it's really easy when you get rocked on the back foot around turn 4 to turn 5 to just let it slip and forget that the game's not even halfway done. And you can pull games back very easily.
Anyone can pull anything out of their ass at any time.
Yeah, because my turn 5, Crimson Tower, and Steel Legion coming on. Like, that's, 1,000 points almost right there. That's my army. Or a good chunk, or 600, 700 points. And, like, each unit that game, the rest of those turns, I think each one of them had 2 confirmed, like, regiment kills. The Crimson Tower had, like, 3 each. It was great.
You're going to start painting little stars for kills on, like, the horses and stuff.
Gonna go put some tallies on them right now.
Just put on the swords. Just like Nixon the hammers. All right, well, that was a game for round 2 for yourself. Karl, let's hear about your round 2.
So this is a little bit of a funny one because there's like a few moving parts here.
Okay.
First of all, this tournament was just kind of like a testing ground for certain lists because, like I said, my city-states was basically, it was just a modified version of Ben's Adepticon list. Got the idea that I threw to Tyler for the 2 blocks of 5 from a 100K list that we'd looked at for some playtesting. And then my round 2 was against a friend of mine, Steve, a local OD player, because I only played locals at Gencon. And it was another list that Ben had actually written, and he beat me with it. Although OD's pretty underpowered right now, that's more of just a testament to how good he is, winning with underpowered lists. But this was a 2x5 Canaphores with a fully upgraded Fallen Divinity, some carries, and an Archimandrite in a big block of Praetorian Guard with Horror of Death.
What scenario did you play?
So this was melee.
Oh yeah, that's right. They're all in the same one, because last time we had a tournament, each of the tables was a different scenario, and it was like, all right, guys,
I don't
this
like
one.
that for figuring out like second and third place. I don't love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry.
I'm also going into this round with like, okay, shit. Because I figured it was, like I said, it was about a 60-40. Like, okay, I'm probably not gonna beat the 2-5 AD, at least with city states, and I'm not going to show up to a tournament basically building a meta hate list against one of my friends, because that just be a little scummy.
Here's the thing: Mike would 100% do that to me, so you should have.
Yep.
I was not going to.
Good shit. Honors for dead people.
Yeah, so I'm going in round 2.
Karl has honor.
You know, I try to have a little bit. I'm making up for the fact that I actually brought 9 stands of VCI to Adepticon back when they were Volley 3. We're just making up on some lost honor there. But yeah, so I would have preferred to fight Tyler round 3. I would have had a bit more advantage on the scenario, and just generally I have a better shot for second place there. So I'm figuring already that, alright, I need to scrounge up as many points as humanly possible, so that I can still claw my way back up to second or third. And I end up going into this OD list.
Yeah, so you're gonna farm Old Dominion? Sounds great.
Pretty much. I did my kind of usual tactic. Lot of blessed in that list as well, but it's easier to deal with. Kind of goes to show, like, D3 blessed versus D4 blessed. D4 blessed is just so... It's certainly something.
Feels really good.
Oh my god. When I've found that, like, once the defense rolls get past 3, like they say into that 4 and that 5, that's a real big kind of make or break line if your list can handle those things. Like, if you have a list that's running low cleave or armor piercing or anything, like, dealing with anything with like defense 3 with a shield, but you can get around from a flank and reduce, but like from the front or defense 4 base, it gets real tough, and like people start making the rules more.
Yeah. And you know, it's a weird one because the Canaphores are also hardened and 2 evasion. So the Thyrians they're still saving on 2s into Thyrians. AD are only on 1s into them, but then Canaphores are also properly tooled for the fact that they don't take Resolve. Ashen Dawn just don't take Resolve, and they're still pointed as a unit that does take it.
They take a couple here and there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you get them into the flank, they'll maybe take like 2 Resolve damage the entire combat.
And if someone ever does come into you with Cleave 3 Linebreaker, your Evasion 2 and the Canaphores with Bless, that's always nice.
And Steve is a very good OD player. Feel a little bad for him that he's shafted with a bit of an underpowered faction at the moment. But basically go to my usual game plan, because if we're looking at melee here, this one's really nice for me because it's all centralized objectives. So I just roll hoplites onto a point, and they just do their job. So I'm coming in, I'm on the player 1 side, I bring in my big block of hoplites onto the 6-inch closer to me, I send the smaller block towards the 12-inch, this is after he's already thrown his carries and Fallen Divinity on. He put his Fallen Divinity on his left side, my right. I actually put my hoplites away from that, because I just want them to sit on objectives and farm points.
Yeah,
and
they're going to get eaten by that Fallen Divinity.
Yep, absolutely. And then I ended up bringing a Haspist on the left side as well to just almost kind of bait some more deployments onto that side. And then what I ended up doing is then turn 2, I actually brought in Haspists from the flank. Turn 2, I brought in Haspists and threw them the full 18 forward. Turn 3, I flanked in a second unit of Haspists and had them do their Vanguard move on the right side. So basically, turn 3, I was sitting on 3 objectives. And farming objectives here is really good. And
So when you flanked in or came in from the side with the reinforcement line with the Vanguard, did you line up the unit and then just wheel in as far as they would go for your first march, and then did you just like triple march or use your next 2 marches just go like straight forward towards that 12-inch zone? Like that was the idea?
I brought them in, I wheeled them like maybe 2 inches forward because that's all they needed, and then just the rest of the move that I had, I figure it was around like 12 or 13 inches, and just did that to catapult them onto the objective. So end of turn 3, I'm sitting on both the 12 inches and one of the 6s. Turn 4, the big hoplite block killed the carries and moved and sat on the other 6. And
you're scoring those bonus points too.
Yep, so I pulled a little bit of a tricky one where he brought in 5 cataphors to counter-score the Haspists, and then on turn 4, I flanked in Thyrians and ran them straight into the side just to put 6 stands on that objective compared to his 5. So then I maxed out the objective scoring for that one turn and basically had him on the back foot for the entire game then there. Because one turn of maxing out objectives on a scenario like Melee just gets you so many points in the scheme of things.
It's let's see here. I have this open. It is 3 for the 12s, so there's 6, 2 for the 6 inchers, so there's 10, and then you get another. Yeah, it's just 12. Yeah, it's so far. It's such a boost, especially like because this is a kill point scenario as well. Anything you kill is more points. So just getting a free 12 every turn. Like I've played this like Melee with the Goblin list, and that's exactly what I did.
Yep. And then basically it's just kind of tightening the noose. The Fallen Divinity, I killed the Fallen Divinity before she hit tier 3. Basically hit her in the front with hoplites and then flanked her with Thyrians. I had a Haspist and a Thyrian take down a unit of 5 canaphores over like several turns. And then it's basically tightening everything up while keeping stuff on the objectives, and I think I ended up winning it like it was like 70 or 80 something to like 4 points.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Did your opponent like was those 4 points from scoring or for killing stuff?
Killing stuff. He didn't score. I don't think he scored a single objective that game because the one turn he tried, I ended up moving the hoplites onto that point and popping unyielding.
Oh, thank you, City States player. Everyone loves that ability.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
Have you popped unyielding, like put hoplites on an objective, popped unyielding, and like scored it yourself?
Yeah, all the time. But if there's no shooting, I just pop unyielding because polymarchs are they're high priority activations, but also they're nice filler where if I just kind of want to see if I want to play more reactive, they're always on the top. Plus a strat stack just to basically give me 3 to 4 dead drops before I actually have to do something.
Are you gonna put a bigger notch into all the acts of the Minotaur Thespians for killing the Fallen Divinity? Or are you gonna call it Gimli and that only counts as 1?
Something like that. I don't know. See, I take more satisfaction from killing Dweg, so
Doesn't everybody?
Exactly. Well, yeah. Now I gotta get worried about playing him. I think I'm undefeated into Dweg competitively at the moment.
Don't say that. The competitive Dweg players are gonna come out of their Dweg holes.
out of their holds and
Competitive like players.
mountain homes.
Just spam P5.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Rolo would kick my ass, but he's too good to be allowed to play. And then I just
why he
happened
organizes.
to be playing a cheesier list against Brian at Adepticon than he was even playing because I was spamming VCI.
There's the double Steelforge, Hellbringer Drake, double cast Warlord list for Dwag that I keep looking at and I'm like, I must not be tempted to the darkness that is Dwag.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens with the next patch and that kind of stuff, but it'll have its time in the sun, and, if someone wants to buy 4 boxes of Steel Forged, they're free to waste their money, but I'm sure they'll have some fun kicking babies.
That, like, if I were to put a public service announcement about, like, Conquest, is that you buy 2 boxes basis stuff. If it's new, just buy 2 boxes and play with that. And then after a year, if you still want more, then go get more. Because usually by that point, like, enough, like, nerfs and buffs have gone through where it's, like, kind of normalized after a while. Like,
yeah.
Don't do what I did and buy 4 boxes of Crimson Towers in November and then January hits for version 2 and they get changed. Don't do that.
Oof, man.
I know someone else who did that.
Oh, is that person in this call right now?
I think so.
He might be.
Usain
He
Bolt?
might have played Lost one day. Was just like, man, I just need to bring more Crimson Tower. Went,
God.
bought a couple boxes of Crimson Tower, came back with 20 Cavalry
What the fuck?
just for it to change a couple of lists. I was also running Household Knights. I bought a couple boxes. Yes. I was running like a 5 and 4 block and then leader, so I was running a lot of Tower and a lot of Household Knights, and it was great.
I basically abused Tyler for like several months straight, and then he brought the 2x5 Ashen Dawn, and I'm like, oh shit, he's got a gun.
Yeah. When you play against Karl, who's a very good player, and you lose 30 times in a row, you start getting a little desperate.
You're just like digging through the pile of trash. You're like, I must be deprived here and find some truly horrid shit to throw at this.
Which, in fairness, I think I threw it his way. I think he was already moving that direction, but I did send him the list that was just like, hey, this is kind of utter crap, but I kind of want to see what it does.
Did you go to his house and you just like shove the list underneath his door and he's like making dinner and it's like, what the fuck is this?
I should have.
It was just some inception because I went to the local game store to pick up some crossbows just to finish out because I hadn't owned any crossbows. It was just proxying at the time, and like I had 3 different people in the store all say, hey, you gonna buy more Ashen Dawn? And I'm like, I already bought like a couple boxes. And then I was like, then they were like, well, you should buy a couple more. And I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, well, what would Karl tell you to do? And he's like, he'd probably tell me to buy more. And then they're like, yeah, you should definitely buy more. So I'm sitting in the store and I'm like, Karl, should I just buy more Ashen Dawn? And he's like, well, hey, here's this list. So I sent him a picture of me buying Ashen Dawn.
Karl, we're gonna make a shirt and it's gonna be what would Karl do, and it's just gonna be your Discord logo.
I'd love that.
I have no idea what that is, but we're gonna do that.
It's a Brandon Sanderson reference, actually.
I gotta read that series. I'm reading Trash 40k right now.
I'm listening to the entire Horus Heresy series, so like, I hear ya.
Oh, don't worry. I'm buying the physical books and physically reading it.
Well, spoiler alert. Horus did it.
Oh, shit.
God damn it.
Sorry. Saved you 800 books to read. Sorry.
I'm only on book 36. You can't reveal that.
You can't reveal the first book.
Yeah, it's a metaphor because it's not just that his name is Horus Heresy, it's also that he does the Horus Heresy.
And he is the Warhammer 40k.
No, that was John Warhammer. He's the double entendre. I have no idea if that works in this situation because I'm not good at English. Oh, man.
But yeah, Steve was a good sport, and we had a good time at dinner afterwards, but basically I kicked it up a gear and abused him and scored a lot of points to try to catch up. And yeah, I mean, we'll get into round 3 in a second, of course, but I ended up taking second place because Josh and I tied on strength of schedule, and I won on victory points because of basically kicking it into gear on round 2.
Oh, don't worry. That is the best feeling, is when you come out of round 2 with like an extra 80 points and people are asking, what happened? You're like, I won.
Oh,
Everything happened.
Yeah. Bow down to me, for I am God. So, should we go into round 3, Tyler?
Yes, round 3, and then I will probably excuse myself because I have a wake-up call in like 6 hours.
Ah, I see. Because you need to
So-
go back to work.
Yeah, unfortunately.
No, that's all right. I'm glad that you came and you're telling us about your Gen Con experience. So round 3, how was
Yeah, I
it?
appreciate it. Yeah, my round 3 was the exact opposite of my round 2. Like, this was a good scenario, and my dice were probably loaded. They should have probably been checked by the judge, because everything that went well was great. I think I rolled my entire army on turn 3, right? I rolled like
Oh,
4 twos, and
God.
was just like, I just like looked to my opponent who was playing Spires, and he kind of looked to me, and I was like, he's like, so what are you bringing on? And I'm like, I'm gonna bring on all the Ashen Dawn and Crimson Tower, and he's like, yeah, that sounds right.
What scenario did you play?
So I'm trying to look it up because I don't
It's
exactly
Maelstrom.
remember.
Oh, it's just the 3 circles in the middle.
It's
Maelstrom.
like the most balanced scenario in the game
Then why do I hate it the most?
because it
Yeah, it
requires
was.
effort.
Oh, God damn
Yeah.
it.
So he did pretty well with his reinforcement rolls. He was running some Spires, running like the Lineage Highborn Avatar block. He had no VCI but did have some marksmen, so I was a little bit better for that. He also was running some, what is it, the Centaura Avatara, those crazy
Oh,
horse-looking
yeah.
things.
They have 4 arms.
Yeah. So we deployed pretty evenly spread as far as objectives. He kind of conceded early my left side, and I conceded early my right with kind of like how we deployed. I sent an Ashen Dawn kind of just up the middle to see what he would do, which I don't think he was expecting them to hit as hard as they did. And then I had Crimson Tower on each flank. And the funny thing was, we kind of forgot, like, rolling into like turn 4, because he sent his Centaurs up the board edge and pulled off a march charge on my crossbow unit and killed them. My Imperial Lord and crossbow guys. They were on like my left side, and he ended up getting the charge off and getting into them. So then turn 4 came around, and I was like, oh yeah, I have a Steel Legion coming on. So I put a Steel Legion like into the flank of Centaurs, which he kind of like, we both were kind of like, huh, forgot I had one more unit still coming. And he was like, yeah, I might not have thrown them up that far. And then I think my Ashen Dawn unit killed like his unit of clones and the Biomancer and a unit of Avatara.
Jesus.
I also ended up having them. They killed a lot of stuff and just didn't die. And then I had the other unit of Ashen Dawn. I pretty much made them like 10 wide, right? I put them right next to each other and just pushed them up the middle. And they he ended up, to his credit, he killed all 10. He was the only guy in all of my game testing with the 5 blocks to kill every stand of Ashen Dawn. And that's because he started focusing the shooting units on him.
No,
But by the time,
yeah, that's perfect.
yeah, by the time he did that, though, the Crimson Tower had cleared everything else on. So the key points of that specific game, he let my Crimson Tower get a flank and move up a board edge, and I don't think he was fully aware of how I would be able to march charge them across the center line. So the Ashen Dawn units, if you could picture in your head, they were engaged with like 2 to 3 units in their front flanks. Like I had Avatara, clones, and then like another Avatara, and then Centaurs, all into these Ashen Dawn and crossbows. And from my right to left, I just kind of brought my Crimson Tower, and they swept through everything as everything was engaged, and it was pretty great.
Oh, that is.
Yeah.
You got to live the
Yeah.
dream.
Yeah, so I ended up leaving one unit of Crimson Tower on the objective because it wasn't a kill point game, right? So I just left them there once they cleared it off. And then like the other unit of Crimson Tower cleared off like the middle objective. And then the Ashen Dawn were just locked with the Avatara. And I thought I was going to be great and like they were going to live, but he actually had the build, right? So what was it? Aura of Death, hit me with the impacts, hit me with the cleave, or the clash, excuse me. Hit me with the ability that gives you a free out of sequence action. The one that
from
costs
the
like
character.
6 points. Yep. And then also was shooting them with the marksman clones. So the Ashen Dawn were taking 5 different attacks around, and he killed them all, and it still took him like 4 rounds. He got them all, but that's how much you focused on them. Which just when you focus that much attacks and dice on Ashen Dawn, and there's still other units in the game, it just lets those other units do so much better.
Yeah, good on him of like focusing fire, trying to kill 10 of these Ashen Dawn. But yeah, you left him. You capitalized on the mistake once again, where he left himself open and he didn't look at the Crimson Towers. Like, if I had to fight your list kind of with what he had, I'd probably just send stuff to go tie up the Ashen Dawn, hopefully long enough for me to kill the easier target with the Crimson Towers, and then swing back around to deal with the Ashen Dawn. But yeah, I'm gonna lose more stuff there. But it's kind of that give and take, and also like what you value, of course.
If you can get 2 stands of Ashen Dawn dead before they get in, 3 is ideal. But if you can just knock them down to a 3 stand, then you can stop them from basically wiping out everything they hit, as long as you just chip away those. So that's, in an ideal world, you kill 3 or 2 stands of them, and then just kind of let them live and tie them up with something.
Yeah.
This was the other thing too, right? Because like he did have the Ashen Dawns tied up, holding me off of the center objective. Both of his flanks collapsed. And there ended up being a round where he was unable to bring an Avatara block forward because my Crimson Tower hit his Force Grown in the center, and it made them in combat. He had to reform March. He couldn't March charge through his units because I was in combat. And it like when like we were kind of like talking through it, it was kind of one of those like, we didn't realize it had happened. Like I didn't intend. I would love to take credit for doing that. I was fully expecting like his units to come secure the flank, and he kind of like looked at his stuff and he's like, "I reform and I march." And I was like, "Why don't you just charge my guys?" And he's like, "I can't charge through my own units that are in combat now." And we kind of just looked at it because it was the 10 stands and the Crimson Tower coming from the flank made the center a jumbled mess.
Damn.
But yeah, so
brutal.
Yeah, that one play of him not getting to bring it up kind of hurt him, and then him pushing his centaurs so far up just to kill a crossbow unit, and then in turn getting wiped by a Steel Legion. It would have probably just been better to like use the centaurs, especially with them being such a powerful unit. Like keep them back to snipe an objective if I move up on it.
Or go hunt Crimson Towers, because I think Centaur Avatar speed 8, while Crimson Towers are speed 7, so you can like win that chicken a little better of who's going to charge who.
Yeah, he tried to do that with one unit of his avatars. I just threw my men-at-arms at him. He killed the men-at-arms, and then I was like, okay, well now that the men-at-arms are dead, charge Clash with the Crimson Tower.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of sucker punched him on that one.
Good old Men-at-Arms dying for the real heroes.
Yep. Yeah, we had fun on that one though, but it was just like one of those like things. Like he would have, if I wouldn't have rolled 4 of my cavalry units on with dice rolls immediately, he probably would have been able to set up. But the fact that I was setting up on turn 3 with him in his mediums kind of just let me position, because it makes a huge difference being able to charge on turn 4. Because I push 15 inches up the board. Oh, you're going to try to take the objective? Well, now you have to worry about a charge rather than the unit just coming on.
No, yeah, it puts your tempo a lot sooner and allows you to dictate where you're going to be going and what you can, or what your opponent has to deal with, and that's a really nice thing. So, and then you won, and that was, and so did you? I'm gonna talk about your little end step before we go to Karl, so that you can go off and go get some sleep before you go to work.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, Karl. We will get to you. I'm not leaving you in the dust. I love you.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
These are the moments I live for on the BonkTable podcast.
Yeah, true romance. So Tyler, you won the event. What did you get? Tell us about the swag.
Tell us about the swag. I got a golden fish gnome trophy, baby.
Oh, Aquagnomes is gonna be jelly.
Yep. Yeah. That's what I got.
Yeah, nice. Is it displayed proudly on your desk or like in the center of your living room?
I actually do have it like right where I paint my stuff, like my little painting desk, right, my hobby desk. I have it like front and center on like the shelf.
Nice.
So yeah, it's right there. And then I have the list kind of like retired. I've honestly we played so much Conquest those couple weeks. I have my Conquest Gencon list still in its travel case, and I probably won't open it for a while. Unless Karl talks a lot of smack, then I'll bring the Ashen Dawn back.
You just show him up. What else would you like to share about? Like, was the event and the venue hall really nice? Like, eventually I would hope to get there myself, but like, what can you tell me about that?
I thought everything went really well. It was my first event of that nature, like in person. I've played other events as well, Magic, Warhammer a little bit, a lot of Star Wars Legion, and I liked how it was set up. I would say the like Michigan GT or the table topping events specific, and Karl I think can agree here, are just a little bit better when the focus is strictly tabletop as opposed to like every gaming. It would have been great as well to get a bigger player base, because at our local gaming store we've had 15, 14 people. Like, we've pushed up there in the numbers, and everybody that was at Gen Con usually comes out for some of our tournaments at our store as well. So like, if I want to play Karl round 1, I don't really need to drive all the way to this event and do it. I could just text them and be like, hey, you want to go play a match? But no, the event went well. Rolo meeting him, and then meeting him and Gio, was it?
Giannis.
Meeting them both was great. Extremely nice guys. Got to talk with them, chat with them, and talk a little bit after just each of the games. And just everybody was really great. A little bit of history as well, just as I'm talking up my butt. Karl has been just teaching me a lot about the game. Definitely took a lot to it. I like Conquest, and I hope that it continues to grow just with how they're interacting and doing and stuff. So I definitely am pleased. I like the competitive aspect of it, and it's great to have a competitive guy in my backyard.
No, that's great. And you could probably just go and bang down his door and be like, we're playing a game!
Yeah, if I do that, he might just throw VCI at me. Literally.
Yeah, we got an event in like a week and a half, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to bring city states, but if I hear a peep about the 2.5 AD, my Spires list is coming out of the box.
Are you, Karl, are you going to be like browsing everyone, just seeing as they put models onto like their like bake sheets and stuff to move between each table, and you're just like, oh, there's only 3 Ashendon there. Oh, that's 6. Okay, and then you see that 5, and you're like, all right, Spires, here we go. Just run
I'm gonna
off.
be, maybe. I'll be honest, like, yeah, there's all these talks about, like, the 2-5 AD being insanely strong, but it is not a brainless list. It's really hard to play a list with that many heavies and still pull the wins. Outside of, like, out of the people that I've played before, there's not many people outside of Tyler and Ben who I would be concerned about if they brought that list into me.
Like, it's the player over the faction or the game. Like, the player's skill is really
the player skill tends to matter more, or tends to matter the most in Conquest, regardless of almost anything else.
Okay. Yeah, because what was the meme list that he played for 100 Kingdoms in one with?
We're talking about the goblins or something else.
Oh, it was the OD list, because I'm like, all right, well, OD are the worst faction of the game, and I just lost to them. But also, I lost to Ben, who is just a much better player than I am, so I'm not going to feel too bad about it.
Tyler, what are some things about your list that you kind of like? What are the weaknesses? Like, what are the things that people are, what you don't want to see on the table, or you don't want to play for a scenario, or things that might cut you off guard that they can take advantage of your list?
Yeah, so the shooting, just because it bypasses Blessed completely, coupled with early round scoring, and if it's a scoring heavy map. So, like, some of these objectives were, churn 2 and they got 2 to 3 objectives already. And then if they also just happen to be like any of the shooting lists that Nords or Spires has, those ones kind of suck. It's a lot more of a thought process that has to be put into it. Also, depending on the terrain and board edge, I don't want to fight through forests and water or hindering terrain or anything like that if I can help it. I know I'm going to be, but it's just kind of like when you sit a unit of VCI or whatever other shooting unit on the forest edge and you start just throwing the dice at an Ashendon and other stuff, it kind of makes my job harder. And then the high cleave, which is just because I play a lot of Karl with the city-states lately, those ones I just have to be mindful about the rock, paper, scissors matchup, because it's like, yeah, the Crimson Tower are great, but if he hits them with, Thyrians, I pick the Crimson Tower up because they just don't block anything. So just kind of thinking, yeah, exactly. So just kind of thinking about stuff like that. The biggest issues, like if you're looking or people are playing, 5 wide or just playing Ashendon against you in general, you playing into Ashendon want to have shooting, have high cleave, and have multiple activations into the Ashendon. Don't rush it, and that's where I think a lot of people mess up. Karl is a prime example of just setting the board up the way that you want and playing his game. So a lot of it is just you're playing your game and you want the opponent to join you in your game. If I have to go push your objective and try to win the game on your terms, it just becomes a lot harder, because that usually means I'm doing awkward moves or a flank charge or something wild. Because like we played a test game and it was just kind of like relaxed talk of like, how do we beat the 5 block of AD? And it's like, if I angle, the hoplites here and just sit the Thyrians back, that usually will do it. Or I'll bring the VCI list or a different shooting list and throw that into them. Like Icy Otnars and stuff like that, right? Those ones are, just gotta watch out for it. On the flip side, that's also, though, where having 5 stands helps. Instead of it being, 18 wounds, it's more. It's 30 now. So just stuff like that.
No, that's great, because like there's that give and take in the game where people are like, this is the best thing in the world. Oh my god, 5 Ashendon. It's like, okay, yeah, it's very strong, it's very powerful, but like, what actually happened? And this is why we're doing this interview. Like, people want to know. I'm curious to know how this list worked, and I'm very thankful that you decided to come onto the podcast. tell us about your games, tell us about your list, tell us about your awesome trophy. Like, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
If you'd like to stick around a little bit more, we're going to go to Karl and talk about his game 3, but I know you got to go to bed.
I'm unfortunately bouncing out of here. My alarm goes off in 6 hours now my time, so I will catch you guys all later, and I'll see you guys around in the land of Conquest.
All right. Thank you for coming onto the podcast, Tyler.
Again.
Hopefully one day Mike and I will make the trip down to Michigan and we'll actually see each other in our flush suits.
Hey, dude, Michigan GT.
Yeah, that's in October and when I'm at work.
Same.
Excuses.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, gentlemen. I'm outie.
Have a good
All
one.
right.
Karl!
All right, now he's gone. Now I can talk shit.
Yeah, talk shit. Tell us how shit. No. Don't do too hard shit.
He's fantastic. It's one of those funny ones. We are actually he thinks it's a little funny now, but we thought that we scared him off because he kept running the same Crimson Tower list back in 1.51 into a Spire shooting list that I was bringing.
Oh, God.
And then he vanished for 2 months after that, and we thought he just dropped, but turns out he was actually touring for Flesh and Blood, the card game, and then he came back, hit the ground running, and I mean, it's very nice to have someone as good as him. Likewise in the backyard, it makes getting test games in easier. Just having someone who can actually punish mistakes is very important for getting better at the game.
Yeah, and like I always love when a meta grows and like the players like grow and get better and figure out like, oh, we're making this mistake. Okay, here's how we like deal with it. Like I see it in my like Mike and Mai's own meta that there's players who are making less mistakes that like I could have got them easier on a couple things like dealing with Cav. Like there's players who are just like, yeah, we just march charge into the Cav and then the Household Knights and like the Crimson Towers don't do anything. I'm like, sweet. They figured that one out. And then it also, you know, helps myself and your opponent build and develop new skills to deal with those threats and those issues. So it's always nice.
Absolutely.
It's always great to like see your meta grow.
For sure.
But now you're round 3 on Maelstrom, what I would consider the worst scenario, but you said it's the best. We won't get into semantics. We will not get into semantics here. That's another podcast episode. I'm being dramatic. But please tell me about your round 3.
So the funny thing I realized partway through doing this is my 3 games at Gencon were not only against 3 locals, they're literally against the 3 people that I have played against the most in this game.
Oh, God.
So,
the worst.
Because I playtest competitively a lot with Tyler and just like testing out lists and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I play a lot of games with Steve. I play both of them on TTS, just because sometimes it's easier than getting into a shop. And then Matthew, who I played round 3, is a local Vanguard, and he was actually my round 1 at Adepticon. I've played him probably more than anybody else, so it was just it tops it off for round 3.
I think I've played Mike the most out of all the people I played.
That's probably
fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he brought a new version of his 4 Apex Predator list that he brought to Adepticon.
4? Fucking 4? Mike, you're slacking. Get on the dino train. What the fuck?
I don't even do that good with 2. I don't think it's going to get any better if I double down.
This is a quadruple down.
He gets more people, like he gets more attention at these kinds of cons than anyone else. And I think that's kind of why he does it, because he's got all the people who have never heard of the game coming up and looking at all these dinosaurs. They're all painted gorgeously. That link that you threw out there has a photo of him with one of his Apexes, and they all look fantastic.
Which one? Again, this is all the pictures. I'm going to assume, I'm just looking at it, he is the gentleman, second row, and furthest on the right.
Yep, that would be him.
Out of this actual photo of the 3 of you who have your first, second, and third place trophies, I'm going to assume Tyler's in the middle and you are on the left.
That is correct.
All right, because I think I'm going to put that as the meme for this one. I'll be like, look at these winners. Oh.
Yep. My shop owner said something very witty when I came back, because this is my second silverfish gnome.
You gotta grind these up and turn them into like a silver cape at some point, or like, look,
yeah,
it's my
I think
doormat.
that's the plan. It's harder to specifically win second place, but I'll shoot for it at Michigan GT. It won't be hard because Ben's going to be there. So actually, it will be hard because Michigan GT is somehow going to turn into like one of the most competitive events just in the game because of who all comes out there. Because you have Ben coming out from where he's at.
Mhm.
You have Judge Worm, the Wadroon superstar, who he judged Adepticon, but he gets to come play at Michigan GT. And I think he won Adepticon last year or the year before.
Damn, that's a baller name, Judge Worm. Like, I would not fuck with that guy.
Yeah, and then it just kind of ends up being like a powerhouse meta for some reason. The Michigan and just Midwest area in general.
Okay. I have to go to this at some point.
So this version of
my ass clapped.
So this version of his list was just the 4 apexes. 2 of them were mounted. 1 had a queen, 1 had a predator, and he had 2 units of hunting pack, unit of warbred, chosen a conquest with the scion and the blooded. Pretty bread and butter. The chosen a conquest are pretty nice. And again, this was me going in with the same mentality. I'd already, I'm a numbers guy. I already figured all the math before, and I'm like, okay, so if I win this one and Tyler wins, then I should be able to clear second place because I'll have the same strength of schedule as Josh, but I'll win on victory points.
Yeah, because you have a billion from round 2.
Yep, pretty much. So I came into that, and I in my arrogance, because Matthew says his goal was to get 1 unit into a flank, and I said, I'm not going to let you get a flank charge onto the hoplites the entire game. And, that aged rather poorly. Turn 1, he shoots his hunting packs 24 inches up the board, and I'm like, shit. I'm used to dealing with them because he plays them, and he is a very good Wadroon player and uses them effectively. Definitely forces you to make decisions. So I brought in my 2 hoplites and Hephaestion on the left flank, brought all 4 Minotaurs on the right to push that objective, because in my mind, his hunting packs are already on the left side facing the hoplites, and his chosen a conquest showed up there too, so I'm thinking, okay, I want the Apexes to be fighting the Minotaurs, because what's going to happen in that matchup is because the Apexes having Fiend Hunter actually works in my favor, if you believe it.
You'll have to explain this to me. Why?
So I have the unit of Haspists in front of the Thyrians. The Haspists are very tanky, and usually they'll weather a round of just taking attacks in general. But they take a face tank from an Apex, which is going to cleave them down to their evasion 1 and terrify them down to 1. So
this isn't sounding good.
And he's basically going to hit with everything because Fiend Hunter, Clash 4, because Inspire. But what that means for me is he'll wipe the Haspists, and then there's just going to be Thyrians sitting right behind him. Apex is defense 0 into the Thyrians unless they chance Conquest. And with the other stuff in his list, he doesn't really want the Apexes to be chanting, except for the Fanatic one. His Queen had the Mantle. So that actually works out well for me. And I ended up...
Okay, I see where you baited him now. Yeah, that is smart.
But, he knows that, so it, of course, changes how he plays. So he put in 2 Apexes facing off the Hoplites and 2 Apexes against the Minotaurs. I killed both hunting packs with impacts pretty early. My Warlord block got their Architects off, and they hit one of them, which, in my foolishness, forgot he had 1 activation left, which was the Fanatic mounted Queen on an Apex. He throws her up 20 inches right next to the flank of the Hoplites to just get the charge the next turn, and I'm like, shit, I spoke too soon. Just the deflation on my face. It was pretty clear. But then the Polymarch, oh boy, he put in the work. He did, I want to say, 22 wounds to Apex Predators.
Damn. Like, he just... I'm pretty sure Apex is, like, 1 doesn't have 22 wounds, so he just spread that around, got some multiple charges going on? Damn.
Yep, what happened...
Dude was lifting.
So what we got going on, immediately after the Minotaurs were facing down 2 Apexes, he left the mounted one fighting the Minotaurs and sent a second one over towards the Hoplites.
Mm-hmm.
So his mounted one with the Queen flank charges the Hoplites, kills a chunk of them, but tenacious, high resolve, they actually managed to survive pretty well, despite taking an Apex to the flank, which not many units can do. And they reform, and then just kill the mounted Queen on the attacks.
Oh, did you feel good? Did you realize?
Oh, yeah.
You're like, glory to me!
Feels so good, but that's also, I mean, the Polymarch, the Warlord Polymarch that I have spec'd out, plus the Haspist in his unit, usually throws out about 12 to 13 Cleave 1 hits.
They'll get some work going.
Yeah, they get more hits than actually attacks they throw out because of that handy Relentless Blows, and, you know, their Clash 4, Polymarch has 7 attacks with Flurry. So they're putting in the work. So yeah, the Polymarch alone did, I want to say, 8 wounds there. And then the rest of the regiment did the other 6. It was dead before it even hit resolve.
Oh, that's a good feeling.
Yeah. Then, the next turn, they take a second charge from an Apex and Warbread. They barely survive.
Is this also from the flank because you spun around to deal with the Queen Apex?
Nope, so my reform actually... I used my smaller Hoplite regiment to screen the flank, so they were protected after they reformed.
Okay, good.
Because my second hot block got stuck in with the Chosen of Conquest and basically spent the rest of the game whittling them down without, you know, they killed a few stands and then held them to a standstill. Neither side was really taking wounds. But then I throw my Polymarch alone into the Apex and the rest of the unit into the Warbread. Polymarch does 9 wounds to the Apex on 1 turn.
Jeez.
And then the next turn,
hungry.
He wins the activation, goes with the Apex wipes the unit, and then the Polymarch kills him on Go Down Fighting.
Are you gonna go buy an Apex, get the bits, and like carve out a leg that he can stand on his base? Just like,
I really should. That was a moment for sure.
Dude's gonna be, or like have the head of the Apex and the Polymarch is climbing out of it.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be sweet. Good on him.
Yep. For sure.
All right.
And then
you killed the Apex. The rest of the unit fought the Warbread. What's next? Come on.
Yep. So great. Then Hephaestion got a charge clash on. He pulled the ultimate disrespect. He charge clashed and did 11 wounds to an Apex, which they have 14 now. I was within interference range of the Scion, so his spellcast, when he's going in for a spellcast, he's making it with the minus, the -1.
Yeah.
And Apex doesn't care about the terrifying. He doesn't really take resolve. So I'm like, alright, I'm going to pull up the Aura of Death. So I cast the Aura of Death spell, which I actually get pretty good mileage out of it. I know a lot of people kind of knock on it. But then he throws up the Aura of Death spell. Then the Apex goes and kills itself on Aura of Death.
No, that's really good. Yeah, I've seen, so I feel if you're being aggressive, like the Trident Strike is kind of the way to go, but if, like, I guess in your case, because you were going to hit with that -1 attunement, like it was probably a safer deal to go for that Aura of Death. I think it's like 7, so it's still a good amount of hits.
Yep, it's AOD 7. So I usually go for Trident Strike, of course, but if I'm playing into OD, or if something with high resolve, like if I don't think I will be able to get 7 wounds out of, or even just 7 hits off of Trident Strike, I'll just go Aura of Death.
No, that's a good thing to know and like discuss, because like this didn't really go into my head about like the difference between those two spells, because the only time I've ever seen Aura of Death actually be casted was when I had an opponent March Charge the Hespis into a unit of Sealed Temple and did enough impact damage to then trigger to get it like a dice roll and just went with Aura of Death, and then I activated the Sealed Temple and just like lost one.
Yep. And yeah, that's another good one because he can feasibly get a spell off of a March Charge.
Yeah.
It's like it's not going to happen all the time, but it's like, maybe a 50% chance, which is not that bad.
No, especially going from Attunement 2 to Attunement 4 has really helped both giants out a lot for getting their spells off. Yeah,
well, Promethean is still 3. I think he needs to be 4. He still struggles to get his spell off, and it's really feels bad when, like I was saying earlier, he doesn't really mesh well with the activation order. Like, his stats don't line up with his abilities, and his abilities don't go off as consistently as they probably should, so it's not great.
Yeah, if we do remember, I do want to talk to you about that giant, the support giant, after your game, just because like I'm kind of curious of like what your thoughts are more deeper, and I do have a couple questions about that.
Yeah. And then after he basically, like I said, he had his mounted predator and other apex on the other side of the field. One of those apexes ran over and got killed by the Polymarch. He still had the predator with Hide of the Silent Hunter. He got packed up by Thyrians pretty quickly because D4 reroll 6 doesn't mean much when Thyrians have you at D0.
Did they just tell him to go home and he just like, oh, okay?
I softened him up with some Haspists first. And then, yeah, the Thyrians just kind of canned him. And then at that point, so the scoring on that one was, I want to say, yeah, it was 32-2 on Maelstrom.
Damn. 32-2. Jesus, dude, you were securing your second place trophy for silver.
I was really going for it. I think the sweatiest I've ever gone at any tournament ever was probably Motor City Mayhem, because Chuck Ellswick, he's a big War Machine guy, but he plays a lot of Conquest and is also quite good. He and I figured from the start that it was only 3 rounds and they're going to be 2 3-0s, and they had the secondary win condition as victory points. So I ended up scoring 337 over 3 rounds.
Damn, dude. It's like a fucking over 100 points per round.
Yep, it was like 110, 114, 113. It was with a Spires list, so.
Jesus. Damn. So, did you have a good time? Did you enjoy yourself? Like, how was... I'm going to ask you the same questions I asked Tyler. Like, did you enjoy the venue? Like, let's talk about some of that.
I mean, it was my first time at Gencon. I'd done Adepticon. I mean, if I'm just going to be frank, I think Adepticon was better. But I got 6 rounds in at Adepticon. I got to play people that I hadn't played before.
Yeah. It's always nice.
All great opponents at Adepticon. I had Diego, Doug, Brian, and Ben, none of whom I had met or played before Adepticon. And then, but yeah, I mean, Gen Con was fun. I was talking with Rolo about it, and he was saying next year they'll probably lean away from the tournament and try more of a narrative kind of thing, which I do feel would work better. Because it was, if there's Conquest, I'll be there, but it was also a little whack driving 3.5 hours to play the same 3 dudes that I play, every week.
Yeah, but like, I know for myself, I'm gonna be traveling more to these events and stuff. Like, but isn't Gen Con more of like just kind of a bigger nerd convention? Like, isn't one of the biggest nerd conventions in North America? Like, it's also
absolutely.
It's also being hosted to like Magic, Warhammer, D&D, like tons of board games, all these other different things. Like, who did I see was there? There was like I think Chris, not Chris Pratt. It's like Chris Perkins, one of the lead designers of D&D, was there. One of my buddies was like, got a picture with him and sent that. Like,
yeah,
I mean, like,
that's what Gen Con's about.
Yeah, it's like everything nerd is there.
Yeah, so I think it's a fantastic convention. I was glad to see Parabellum there. I love all of their community staff, and it was great seeing Daryl, Hunter, Giannis after touching base after meeting them at Adepticon and that kind of stuff. And judges were fantastic. So yeah, it was an awesome event. And yeah, I think I will probably try to make it down again next year.
No, I hopefully I will come and meet you there, and you can kick my ass.
Fair enough.
So my next question is: do you either want to talk about the weakness of your list, or do you want to talk about not the Hespian? I can never do these names.
Promethean.
Yeah, the support giant. Which one do you want to talk about first?
I'm good talking about the list, to be honest. Yeah, no shooting is a bit of a killer. I think that it's a good weakness for city states to have because everything in their list is so points efficient as long as it's doing what you want it to do. The second that you're not, it feels bad. That's why I am a strong advocate against anything larger than MSU from the Minotaurs. A strong advocate at anything other than 5 stands for Agama and that kind of stuff. It's just it's fixed units. You want to maximize efficiency with their list in every degree possible. It's also the no lights. Only 9 activations can really bite you. And that it definitely did at certain points. Specifically against Tyler when he's just out activating me by 1, and I'm like, all right, well, I know it's Ashen Dawn on the bottom, but there's nothing I can do about it, even with Strat Stack.
Yeah, and then you just gotta figure out which one he's gonna activate last at that point.
Yep, pretty much.
Usually it's not hard.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, all in all, the list plays very well. I think what's surprising, because I enjoy playing higher skill floor, skill ceiling factions, and that's what drew me to Spires at first and why they're my main faction. But city states are definitely one of the harder ones. They're definitely more complicated than I expected them to be. It's, I see it in the Discord and that kind of stuff. A lot of people struggling with them, and I try to go in and toss out tips and that kind of stuff because they're definitely not as new player friendly as I thought they were.
Yeah, I've played into them a couple times. I've looked at them, and it's like I'm not gonna have I want to say the greatest I have the in-depth knowledge. No, it's this is why we're doing interviews. This is why we're talking about the game. Each of their units seems to be fulfill a very specific role, and if you use them in that role as they're intended, you will gain great mileage out of that unit. The moment they stop doing that role, they fall apart.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. There's times where people are like, I'm gonna do a ton of damage with hoplites, and I'm like, yeah, sure.
Oh yeah, well no, they
it's
definitely will, but it's not the way that people expect, and that's it's the big one I see is when people try stacking Minotaur blocks bigger than the minimums and that kind of stuff, and I'm looking at that I really don't think you want to be doing that.
Yeah, it's the only reason I put 6 stands of Steel Legion on there is because I know those back 3 stands are going to get shot to death, and I just need the front 3 stands to make it to the fight. Well, I feel how you've explained your list with the Minotaur Hespians and the Minotaur Thyrians layering, so that the Hespians can just block stuff and die for the Thyrians to actually get there, and even if the the Hespians do get there, it's really nice, but it's that's not their main purpose. Their main purpose is to get the Thyrians into combat to do those big hammer hits that you want.
Yeah, they're one of the best mainstays in the game. Vanguard scoring, impact hits, cleave 1. There is very little you could ask for, especially city-states infantry units can struggle a lot without characters. I think that's the problem with Phalangites, is they're designed to work better without characters because of the flurry, but then you don't really want to take much city-states infantry without the characters, and people are always going to have their own opinions, but it's they don't even do very well into Ashen Dawn, so I can't say, if your opponent's running a mass cav list, they're good. They're not even that great into the best mass cav list in the game, so
no,
they're really falling flat at the moment.
Yeah, and especially because they're 10 points more than Hoplites, I believe, or Hoplites 130. it just Hoplites just kind of like they just do better. Like, why wouldn't I just take Hoplites?
Especially, you can't compete with the 11 Cleave 1 attacks from an upgraded Polymarch and the Haspist.
Yeah. So my question is, why did you take a Polymarch over the Aristarch? Aristarch. Thank you.
So he lacks a second. I might get flack for this. He lacks a second functional mainstay. His mainstay is the unit that he's in. You can definitely throw points into a scoring unit, like an MSU of Hoplites or an MSU of Phalangites. But then when you look at the Polymarch's warband, it's like, okay, I could do that, or I could scrounge up some extra points and then run an MSU of Haspists instead, which are just so much better.
Also, Ogma's in here. What are the Cleave 1 boys?
Yep. Nice. There was another list that I was testing around with some Agama. I like it. I'm probably going to bring that to a local tournament next week. I just ended up going with the Minotaurs for Gencon, just kind of what I was feeling. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's the Haspist and the Agama as the mainstay on the Polymarch that really sets him out. And I don't think currently the Aristarch's restricted, because the only one he really brings to the table over Polymarch is the Promethean. Once Chariots are out, all bets are off, because I will be taking 2 single Chariots with the Bolt Thrower and just scoring with them, because
Scorpion, or is that range 16?
Yep, the Scorpion.
Yeah. Like, medium range units are probably some of the best bang for your buck in this game, because they can sit on those back zones and they can just shoot. Like, they just need to toe the zone and they could just push themselves that little further to shoot at stuff.
Yep, absolutely.
I think one of the best shooting units in the game for both scoring is the bow statues from Old Dominion, because they're like range 20 with armor pierce 2.
Yeah, they're decent. It's marksman clones.
Oh, those are mediums. Oh god.
Yeah, marksman clones are probably the best medium. Like, they're one of the best mediums in the game as far as just scoring, shooting. Because Fireforged are good, but they're really just a bunker for the mage. And
yeah,
the marksman clones are just fantastic. And yeah, I think Chariots, like movement 8, fire in advance. What more could you ask for in a cheap scoring unit?
Their movement's 7, but still, it's super good.
Oh,
who cares? Yeah, no,
you're pretty really close.
Close enough, especially because you're range 16 with this thing.
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, so I think Aristarch opens up more once he has those other options, because when he's bringing Chariots, then I'm like, okay, yeah, it's worth it for me to throw an MSU of Hoplites or Phalangites or even Thoras as the second mainstay outside of the brick that he's in. But until then, the Promethean, I've kind of already addressed a little bit, and I know you wanted to talk about that a little bit more, but I just don't like the spot that he's in right now.
Is it
so?
Do you want to talk about him right now?
Sure.
Okay. Is it because he has to he has to be the first activation, do the work, and then survive for his buff bubble to affect other people?
Yep, that's absolutely it. Because even if you're putting him directly in front of the unit that he wants to be buffing, and so even if he's towards the end, it's a lot of setup for buffs that realistically you can get from characters slightly easier, and then Hephaestion is just a monster, literally in comp, because 20 points for cleave and a point of terrifying is ridiculous, especially when his terrifying 2 stacks with Trident Strike. Like, this dude you can't pin him down with just like a chaff unit, because he can clash with no inspire, get a chunk of hits in, then charge the unit behind him, and then torch him with the Trident Strike as well, because it's a free activate, or it's a free action. Like, he is absolutely worth the 60 points at the moment for over a third unit of Thyrians.
Yeah, no, I do agree on putting more value in the Haspian. For the Promethean, one thing I have noticed that you could do to get his bubble out is try and get your opponent to fight on your terms by your objective and have the Promethean just hit it once. So that you have 3 turns of just like easy, secure, getting those buffs out without the Promethean actually being attacked because the other units are around him and it's hopefully closer to your end but still far enough forward for those buffs to get out. Because what is the range on this thing? Within 6. No, within 8. All friendly units within 8.
So, it's not a huge buff, and he goes that both giants don't fare well into shooting. 14 wounds, D3. Like, the hardened one is very nice, but 14 wounds at D3 goes down pretty fast to shooting, and especially good opponents know that shooting into hoplites basically means nothing when you have a polymarch in them.
Yeah.
But if there's a Promethean or a Hephaestion right next to it, those are much more tempting targets. And so if your Promethean is sitting there whacking an objective marker, they're just gonna shoot the Promethean and kill him while he's fighting the objective.
Yeah, no, especially, so even then that's not a foolproof perfect plan, and it only works on so many scenarios. So it's you're really stretching it thin here to try and make this guy work.
Yeah, I've played him before, and it's not that I hate him. It's just I've found setting him up properly for his buffs almost requires you to be better than your opponent anyways. And if you're better than your opponent anyways, there's just beat him with something else that's more flexible, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I get that. Is there anything else you'd like to share about Gencon with us? Is there any secrets you want to talk about Gencon with us? Ooh.
None that I can think of there. I know they had our local Wadroon players were up in arms because a 10-year-old who was doing more than anyone I've ever seen to promote the game happened to win the Thunder Riders off the Wheel of Fortune that they had going there.
Oh, it's a... Really? This is the point of contention in all of Conquest? Is the annoyed Wadroon players?
I think annoyed is a bit of an overstatement, but it was one of those, I think that they would have thrown over $300 to get Thunder Riders early, you know?
Yeah, I would not, if Mike was there, I wouldn't be surprised if, it's so how much were those? And it was $500.
Yeah. This wasn't Matthew, it was one of our other local Wadroon players. He was like, I wonder if I could trade him one of my Apexes.
Oh my god. Mike, would you do that? Would you trade a 10-year-old one of your Apexes for Thunder Riders?
No, honestly, I have a job and my own money, and I can wait, so I don't, if you don't have them and you want them that bad, you just proxy them with other Raptors that you have. So if there was some, if those were special Thunder Riders that you could only get at Gen Con, then yeah, I'd rip the kid off without a second thought. I would fleece that kid so bad his parents would hunt me down. But if it's just regular Thunder Riders that I can just buy for the normal price a month later, no, I'm not a moron. I'm not gonna spend too much on something.
For sure. And yeah, no, this was great. Like I said, this kid was literally walking around the booths, bringing other people to the Conquest booth from the impression that we got from Hunter. It was awesome.
Yeah, if it was the only 3 girl Thunder Riders that were ever gonna get made, absolutely. That kid would spend the rest of his life regretting crossing his path with me, but
this
taking
I have two images of this child doing his best for promoting the game and the community to other people, and then getting ripped off by Mike.
Both of those things can happen. It's not the best, but
seems feasible.
You know? So probably better that he just got the normal kit and I wasn't there.
Yeah.
You're not gonna hunt this child down? Give me the kit.
Yeah. I don't need to.
That's actually like the kid promoting the game just sounds like that's such a nice moment in gaming. Like,
it's
in
fantastic.
general.
Yeah.
And then like I don't know if they like rigged it or something, but like, getting something super cool as well is just super nice. Like it's just icing on the cake for this kid.
Well, I think he already bought the Thunder Chieftain or something like that.
Oh man, this guy was going places.
Yeah, no, it was like, I'm sure it was completely random, but it was, in air quotes, but a worthy recipient, I will say, for sure.
Oh, 100%. Just watch out, like, next Gen Con, they'll be like, and your opponent, the 10-year-old, or I guess the 11-year-old, you'll be like, what the fuck?
Yeah, the 11-year-old next to, or Adepticon or something.
They can't publish his identity, so he's just the 11.
Yeah, he's a minor.
Yeah.
Small child wins Adepticon, Adepticon and Gen Con. News at 11.
Well, we'll see. I'm gonna bring Sorcerer Kings to next Adepticon.
Ooh, that is... Mike, are you into Sorcerer Kings, or is that our Vanguard?
I really don't give a shit about the Sorcerer Kings, if I'm being honest.
Jeez.
Like, I mean, it's fine that they're coming to the game, but I'm not gonna...
It's not the
I'm waiting for hell, yeah.
Yeah, we've had that discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's gonna be a fight in the parking lot between Mike and myself about who gets the gargoyle.
Seems accurate.
Well, that's why I'm getting good now, so then when the gargoyle's on the line...
Just gonna show up with, like, ripped abs and muscles and be like, fucked. Oh my gosh.
I don't need to win a fight through strength, I just need to take more hits and stay on my feet longer. And, you know what? Not a lot of brain up there, so...
Hockey rules.
It's all fluid, I can just take hits all day.
Yeah.
Like The Simpsons.
Played by Canadian hockey rules here, just as long as you stand.
Yeah.
Should we call it there?
This might be it for me. I
think it works for me.
All right. Well, thank you. I want to say thank you to Karl. I want to say thank you to Tyler for coming on to the BonkTable podcast and telling us their experience about Gen Con. If you're interested in seeing more from BonkTable, we have a Discord in the link below. We got a YouTube channel in the link below. You can come in into the Discord and talk to us. Both Tyler and Karl are here, so if you're really curious more about City States, 100 Kingdoms, anything else they're playing, they're here, and I'm sure they'll gladly talk to you. Karl seems to be already doing that to people.
They don't talk to me. Mostly people have me blocked on that server, but...
It's your own server.
Karl, really, the tragedy of my life.
Karl, do you have anything you'd like to plug?
Not in particular. I mean, anyone in the... I suppose anyone in the northern Ohio, Indiana, southern Michigan area, my local game store, Far Harbor, is having a pretty sizable Conquest tournament on the 26th of August. And details are available on Facebook.
Sweet. Do you want to send me a link and I'll put that in the show notes below for people?
Sure.
Okay, perfect, because I plan to actually have this out as a bonus episode earlier than we normally do.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Yeah, okay. So with that, thank you, listeners, for joining us today, and I hope you have a great evening. Bye!
Bye.